Okay, good evening and welcome to our live stream tonight. My name's Mark. I'm a second year product design student at Sheffield Hallam University, and I'm also the president of the Christian Union. So if you're joining us live and you've just come on, then you are more than welcome, and we are so happy that you decided to join us this evening. We're currently in the middle of our events week. So tonight we've got a next event that's come up. So tonight's title is Can We Remake the World But Better? And we're going to be sort of looking at that and sort of answering this big question. The Christian Union, they're sort of a group of students that gather together currently on Zoom, but sort of pre-COVID, we would be meeting on campus. But we get together, we sort of look at what Jesus means for us, and and we put on events like this to sort of help people understand and sort of really explore the Christian faith. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we're going to be joined by Alex, who I think is just going to appear here.
Hello.
Good evening, Alex. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm good, thank you. Yeah. Would you like to just perhaps introduce yourself and sort of tell us a bit about who you are?
Yeah, sure. I'm Alex. What's interesting about me? I live in London. I am half Polish, half English. You might not guess by my accent. I studied at Centre St Martin's in London and have kind of stayed in London since, and work as an art staff worker in London. So I help students who are art students kind of think about their faith and also how their arts practice connect, things like that. And I'm a weaver. I keep doing it now, and I'm a bit obsessed with threads. That's some interesting things about me.
Awesome, that's great. Well, we are very excited to have you this evening, Alex. And as I said before, if you're just joining us, tonight's talk is going to be on the topic of can we remake the world but better? There you go, popping up on the screen for you. So throughout this evening as well, we're going to be having a Q&A. There is a Slido for anyone that knows that that's active. So you can follow or type in sort of slido.com and you can put in that code that's on the screen now. And that'll take you to our sort of Slido page where you can put in any sort of questions that you might want to ask Alex, and we'll be going through those later. So you can just send them in sort of whenever you want. Or equally, you can put them in the comments at the bottom of the YouTube video, and we can see them, and we'll get around to answering those a bit later. But yeah, that's great. Also, just after this, when we've finished, there's going to be a little Zoom call, a Zoom cafe. Feel free to sort of bring your cup of tea. I was going to say coffee, but probably not coffee. It's a bit late for that. Maybe if you're drinking decaf, you'd be okay. But I don't know, hot chocolate even. That's always a good shout. But if you're joining us for this, we'd love you to join us afterwards. We'll be gathering on Zoom to sort of have a little catch up, have a chat, and maybe sort of think about what we've been hearing. So yeah, good stuff. I wonder perhaps we could start off with something interesting. I wonder, Alex, if you'd be able to tell us something exciting that you've done this week, maybe.
We were talking about this before, and I was like, I honestly have nothing exciting to share. Every week is the same. I mean, I can't even think of anything. I don't know if any of you have been into Animal Crossing over lockdown. That's been amazing, and that keeps me entertained, probably almost every day. So if you are on that, hit me up. I need all the fruits you can collect. But Mark, I heard that you have something interesting to share.
Yeah. I mean, just today, I would say my whole year just got a whole lot more exciting. I got a delivery in the post from my course at uni, and they've sent us these like Lego kits.
Oh,
so it's called
mate,
a
that's
Serious
cool.
Play Lego kit, and basically we just had to send our address, and they sent it to us, and it's basically just a load of Lego for me to use to like help me visualize in my course. And I mean, I don't think my uni experience is going to get much better than that.
That is, that's the
Lego.
height of your uni experience.
Yeah,
I think. That's pretty
it,
cool.
it, it does make sort of working from home a whole lot better. So That's great. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Something exciting. I mean, if any of you guys watching this have got something exciting that you've done this week, maybe you can pop it in the comments and let us know. We'd love to know what you've been up to.
I'm sure there's something more exciting than we've just shared.
Yeah. If anyone else has got some Lego, then feel free to share that as well, because I mean, I'd love to see that. That'd be great. But awesome stuff. Great. I mean, if you're just joining us now, if you missed the start, we're going to be sort of looking at the topic of can we rebuild the world but better? And Alex is going to be sort of bringing us a talk on that in a second. Well, I'll say in a second. I mean, I'll probably hand over to you now, Alex, and let you take it away.
Great.
Yeah, over to you.
Thanks. Chloe, could you share the presentation just so we can see the quote? Yeah, anyway, thank you so much, Mark. It's so nice to be with you. As I said, I'm Alex, and tonight is kind of for you guys who are kind of art students or anyone who's interested in the arts, because I'll be sharing some kind of work from different artists. But I was at a conference last week where one of the speakers quoted this from a recent article in The Guardian. So if you can see that on the screen, it says, "The past 10 months have been cataclysmic for the arts. No other part of the UK economy, with the exception of hospitality, has been so gravely impacted by the pandemic." So this article stated that despite a 1.7 billion government rescue package for the arts, it left an unforgivable gap. So individuals, most who are self-employed, and found themselves ineligible for support. So it's safe to say that the world seems pretty broken right now. Not only are we in a pandemic from which our economy will be struggling to recover from, we are also experiencing a very real pain of social isolation, perhaps for some of us here, even death of loved ones, or going through mental health issues that have been made more clear to us during this time than in the past. The past year has shown us that our society has many failings, things like the deep-set racial inequality in our Western culture, the ongoing climate crisis. It's hard to not just want to keep actually wanting us to be shut in and to maybe give up. So I presume maybe some of you who are tuning in might be studying within the arts, whether it's fine art, design, architecture. This is what I'll be referring to as the arts. So what's the point of the arts? Isn't there something better to do, something that can have more of an impact on our culture? So on the next slide, we can see a slightly longer quote from a man called John Berger. Some of you may have come across him. He's quite a famous kind of art critic and painter. I don't know if that's going to come on, but I'll just read it. So he says, "This is the promise, the positive function of art. By looking at it, we are, in effect, looking through an artist's eyes, entering into a concretized instance of their gaze. We are looking at a looking. And from within an artist's looking, we learn about the capacities of our kind and the possibilities of our future. A classical Greek sculpture increases our awareness of our own potential physical dignity, a Rembrandt of our potential moral courage, a Matisse of our potential sensual awareness." So it seems like, thanks to a piece of art, whether it's a painting, whatever else, a building, a poem, we can see something that we haven't seen before. We are understanding a language that we wouldn't have been able to access in a different way. It has an influence that points to the future. It helps us to learn something about ourselves as well. And it does it in a way that connects with us as humans, in a way that other things might not. And there is a sense in which the arts make us more fully human. I think culture would be very deprived without the arts. And that includes design, poetry, theatre, stories, films. Imagine going through lockdown without Netflix or the arts. So I thought before I would go on to more of my own thoughts, we could have a look at a couple of artists. So last year before lockdown, I went to Edinburgh and managed to see a show by Katie Patterson, and she has done this amazing project called the Future Library Project, and I'm going to try and share my screen with you and share a video. So bear with me. There we go. I think you can see that. So let me share that with you.
Future Library is an artwork that's going to unfold over 100 years. Today we're in the forest because we're cutting down the trees to clear a space to grow Future Library. In a month or so we'll be planting right here in the forest about 1,000 trees, and when the trees are fully grown we're going to cut them down and print a book which is written now but never read until 100 years. We're inviting one writer a year over the 100 years to write a piece, which could be anything, fiction, non-fiction, poetry, from one word to...
I heard that apparently the audio isn't working, so I'll try it again. If not, I'll just tell you about what she's doing. Let me try that again. Share screen. Share audio. Right, let's give this a go.
Any length of words, and that will be held in a special place inside the new library in Oslo, and then in 100 years time it will be made public and printed, so nobody will read any of these texts until far in the future, and not the next generation, maybe the next generation after that. It's amazing that we're even here today planting the forest, because this is the big kind of milestone really, that we've actually put the roots in the ground and the trees are beginning to grow. So this is quite a momentous moment really for the project. This project has been so much about ideas and about the imagination, and it's really nice to be physically working with these roots and the plants and putting them in the ground and knowing that their growth is going to contain, you know, effectively all the ideas of the writers growing through the roots over the years.
So proud. That's what forestry is about. And that's what city planning is about. We are making decisions today that are extremely important for 2 generations to come. Not for us only, but the next generations.
Here are the trees,
wow.
the future trees. We're going to be forming a trust of people that are going to care for the project, and every 10 years the people in the trust will probably change and then hand it on to the next people and the next people. Nobody else who's part of the project will ever read the piece that's written, which might be quite a strange experience for the writers.
If I were a writer, I think I would like to communicate. I think I must create a person, a reader in 100 years. But I think then I would just jump to it. Then I would be thrilled.
The process of writing when nobody's going, well, somebody's going to read it, but you don't know them and you don't experience it now. So that'll be really interesting. When we start meeting the authors, and the authors are going to be invited to come here to the forest, and hopefully their ideas are going to kind of grow through the trees, and the tree rings become a little bit like chapters in a book.
Can you imagine if somebody came to you tomorrow and telling you, you know, I have this beautiful gift, a book, because your great-grandmother bought a certificate, an edition, without knowing, and now it's published and it's for you. What a gift that somebody thought that long term for me, you know, wanting me to experience that.
I'm going to be building and designing a small room inside the Oslo New Library where the manuscripts will be held over the 100 years. And we're going to build the room using the trees that we've cut down in the forest. Anybody can go up and visit the room with future library text in it. Nobody will be able to read the text, but they'll be there and we'll be able to see the name of the author and the title of the text that they've written, but everything else is in your mind.
Great, I'll finish that. I love this project so much, isn't it so beautiful? Yeah, so I think there's something so beautiful and positive about this project that we just looked. Also a nice excuse to just feel like you're in a gallery a bit. It really shows the power of art, the fact that it has the potential to influence future generations, that it connects people from different walks of life. I love its ambitiousness, that what Katie Patterson is making here is not just for now, but for the next 100 years. Her project seeks the invisible, it seeks abundance and connection. It helps us consider the imagination, the world as it is around us, and shows us how important it is to preserve and to develop. So Chloe, on the next slide, if we look at that, that'd be great. So the next kind of artist I want to show to you is, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him, he's Ai Weiwei. So a few years ago, I think it was in the Royal Academy, I saw this piece of work called Straight. So if you don't know Ai Weiwei, he's a Chinese contemporary artist who uses his art as a form of activism. He has been openly critical of the Chinese government's stance on democracy and human rights. So this work in particular, Straight, is a huge sculpture made of 90 tons of steel reinforcing bars, which were mangled and twisted in the Sichuan earthquake of 2008. So the co-curator of the show back in 2015 said this of the work. They said, "It is a very somber and sobering work when you see it. It has this kind of power and silence about it. It bears a real sense of loss of life." So I have to say that when I saw it, I think I felt that sensation as well. The kind of magnitude and the silence, the kind of physicality of seeing an object that survived an earthquake and then was mangled, then straightened into what it is now. I think only art can communicate something of that depth. It really does reveal something that is beyond sight. It shows us the invisible. And there's something quite redemptive about a piece of work like this. It has the power to reveal suffering. It has the power to reveal inequality, which actually Ai Weiwei, as we said, does a lot. Art has the power to smack some hard truths right in our faces. And perhaps it begs the question, do we as humans ever learn? It's hard to be faced with the question of evil. And there is a sense in which even art can't make things completely better. History seems to repeat itself, and us as humans, time and time again, show that we can't reach our own standards of morality. And Chloe, you can stop sharing the screen now if you like. Let's even go a little further. As artists and designers, we put a lot of ourselves into what we do. We strive for perfection, we strive for progress, but can we truly achieve what we seek? And in some way, there is positivity to having the right sense of humility, realizing that we are not superhuman and we can't do everything. Of course, we shouldn't stop from trying. We shouldn't stop trying, but it's freeing knowing that we can't completely fix the world and its problems. I think that realization comes from seeing ourselves in the right light and perhaps looking beyond ourselves. Have you ever experienced something like a natural phenomenon or a piece of art or music that makes you feel a sense of transcendence and consider how huge the world is and how small you are? For me, it's, for example, when I look at the ocean, I remember back when we had lives, I was on the island of Skiros, the Greek island of Skiros, and was about to jump off a cliff into the rough sea. And I felt the sense of fragility and awe of what the sea held within its waves that I couldn't even comprehend. It made me feel small and insignificant. And when I threw myself in, I had to surrender myself to the sea. But it was a good reminder of the fact that the world isn't all about me. And if you really think about it, it really isn't all about me or you. Have you ever thought about what is behind that feeling that we get when we feel small and in complete awe of something bigger than us? Have you ever considered the possibility of there being some sort of higher energy or being behind it all? Something that makes sense of the world and gives meaning or depth to that which is beyond sight. I know this may sound odd, but listen me out. Some of us here, including me, believe in this higher being that we call God. In the Christian Bible, we see a written account in the form of poetry about how our world was made. So consider the complexity of a forest or the rings in a tree, like we saw in the video. Consider the fish in the sea that we haven't even discovered yet. Perhaps behind it is a creator who has a great attention to detail and who takes pride in what he has made. So in this creation story, we are faced with this higher being, this creator who takes care when making the world. It seems like quite a personal and deeply involved exercise. So this might be a strange comparison, but think about the best thing that you've ever made or created. A lot of you here might study creative subjects or not, everyone's welcome. But for a moment, look back to a drawing or maybe something you knitted, something you designed, that you're really proud of, something where you look back at it and you think, that was pretty good, and everything clicks. And you kind of are not ashamed of showing it to someone. I think you would be pretty annoyed if someone trampled on it, stole it, plagiarized it, and maybe even burnt it. But now let's go back to this idea of this creator, this God that I was talking about previously. If he made the world and called it very good, as we see in the creation account, think about the magnitude and the perfection that he achieved. And imagine with me how much he would care for what he made. That includes the natural world, everything we see around us, and that includes me and includes you as well. If this creator is real, he cares for this world more than you or I ever could. And so the problems of this world, the inequality that we see, the pain that we see and go through, if this God is real, wouldn't it make sense for him to care about these things? Let's think even deeper. If you think about it, there are problems with this world even closer to home, within ourselves. I know that I miss the mark a lot, and yes, perhaps I'm not Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos, but I'm not a perfect human being either. And God sees that, and he wants to make it better, and goes even as deep as the problems within our hearts and souls. He cares so much for what he has made, the world and me and you, that in God's Bible we see that he fixes it in his son, Jesus. And we see in the Bible that Jesus claimed to be the Son of God, one who was as human as us, but also this kind of divine being, but one who ultimately humbled himself and died for everything that is evil, everything that is dirty and wrong in this world, so that anyone who believes in him and listens to what he teaches may be made better and made new. And this creator that we learn about died for what he created. That means that there is a promise of a better and improved world. In the Bible, we see that there is a promise that we can look forward to, where everything will be made new and better, including us. I know this may sound odd, but to be completely made new, be able to look forward to this improved world and better world, isn't that what all of us long for? But what does that all mean to our everyday life? It seems quite futuristic and mad. And what about to our work now? it means that everything we do matters. If what I said is true, that the ultimate being that made the world around us and you and me has fixed the world by dying for it and promises to renew it, then that has amazing implications. It means that we can be hopeful with our work. It means that we should care even more deeply for the world around us because we know its maker. It means that our humanity gives us a great responsibility. We see ourselves as stewards of this world and see our responsibility as people who are to tend this world as a garden, to be cultivating it, to be working at it with care. This means that even the mundane things like maybe talking to a friend or sending an email, it all starts to have more meaning. The small things we do, they all start counting to making a better world. So think back to the example of at the beginning with Katie Patterson. Think how hopeful, how cyclical, how beautiful that example was. But imagine with me again, if we knew the world's creator and we know the world's creator, and we know that he promised to make everything even better and more hopeful by fixing everything around us, including ourselves, this promise, that promise would be even more beautiful than this future library project, for example. And as artists, this encourages us to be ambitious when we're working. We are to take care of the cultural soil so that the plants can grow. As the artist and speaker Makoto Fujimura says, that culture no longer is a territory to be fought over, but rather an ecosystem to take care of. And if all this sounds new to you, that's okay. I wonder if you would like to take the chance to consider, what if there really is this God who exists and who cares for you more than you can imagine? What if there is a God who hears your anxious thoughts because he made you and knows you and wants to make things better? Wouldn't you want to look into this possibility more if it was an offer? Keep investigating and keep asking those big questions. That's all I have to say. Thanks for listening. You're back.
Awesome. Had to remember to unmute myself then.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a few little technical hiccups there, didn't we? But I guess that's to be expected.
It's
well
what
there.
happens in this age, I think.
So what we learn to live with. But yeah, thanks so much, Alex. That was really good.
No worries.
That was some really good stuff. I mean, I've especially I can understand what you're saying with sort of the importance of art and just sort of being able to see like the beauty around us at the moment in the world.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things to do in Sheffield at the moment. Is like when I can sort of get out to the Peak Districts and stuff, and just sort of see that. And yeah, it's great. It's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys who've been watching, you've sent in some questions for us to go through. It's not too late to send in some if you haven't done yet. You can follow the Slido link in the description, or you can just put them in the comments. But we've got a few that I think we'll just go through now. So, Alex, this is a bit of a big one to get us going, but it is if you were to make something that went beyond your own life, what would it be?
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's quite a question. I think I actually have found that quite challenging recently because I heard actually the guy who I mentioned, Makoto Fujimura, talk about that, and that got me thinking about Katie Patterson as well. How actually we should be quite ambitious and quite kind of see our work as abundant and see how it can impact people after you. I've never thought of my work that way actually, but I guess like I honestly have no idea. I think I need to figure that out. But my practice is weaving, so maybe some sort of woven thing, and maybe something that not everyone would see. Maybe for someone who's special or someone who means to me. Not everything we make needs to be seen by people. Perhaps, I don't know. One to work out.
Yeah. Wow, it's fascinating to think of, isn't it? Sort of something that would be left behind for sort of hundreds of years and that sort of thing. Like that was fascinating. That
Yeah.
that project they were doing, sort of leaving the text sort of kept away for 100 years.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we won't be around then, but it'll be interesting to know
Yeah.
what happens when they open
Exactly.
it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, we've just got a load of questions coming in now, so people are really sort of getting them sent in. This is
Gonna
good stuff.
roast me.
Keep them coming. It's great. So let's have a look. So how does God and faith give reason for us to be creative?
Oh wow, that is a huge question. I feel like you could do a whole talk on that. I guess it's kind of what I was talking about. If like the whole narrative, if you're not a Christian, the kind of what I mentioned in the talk, there's the kind of creation story, and we see how God makes the world, which sounds a bit mad if you don't believe in God, but it's quite an interesting thing to read. You should definitely read it, and it's kind of like a beautiful poem, and it talks about how God made things out of nothing. We see how God is the kind of ultimate creator. He makes, he speaks things into being. We can't speak things into being. I can't speak a drawing into being. But God has the power to do that. But he also does things like he fills things with kind of like in rich diversity. Like he fills the sea with fish. He fills the land with animals. He considers things. He takes pauses each day. And actually, it's quite an interesting text to analyze. Considering our own creativity, there's like way more in it that I could talk about, but for the sake of time, I won't. And actually, the very heart of, maybe not necessarily the very heart of God, but very much, there's a lot about him where you can see there's so much creativity in him. And the kind of ending of the creation story, whatever you believe about it, there's, I think Christians also kind of debate on that issue. You can see how he makes humankind, and he makes humankind in his image, so kind of to reflect him and kind of to kind of have a relationship with him. And so that means that we are a bit like him. So that means that actually, like, our creativity, if you're a Christian, comes from God, and it's something that if you're a Christian, you can kind of glorify God with, like kind of worship him with as well. So in a way, it's kind of an act of worship. So that's pretty awesome if you're creative. And I think most people are in different ways. I think that brings like a whole new meaning if you have faith in God and you are a creative. I don't know if that answers the question, but there's so much more you could say about that.
Yeah, I think
enjoy it. It means that, like, not necessarily everything you do has to be about your faith, but it means that you can take pleasure in choosing colors, choosing little details like God did. Yeah.
No, that's really good. I mean, I definitely get what you're saying. Sort of I mean, I would consider myself to be a creative person. I'm doing a design course, and I mean, I would say I'm quite a perfectionist as well, and I've got a large attention to detail. But yeah, I can definitely sort of see, like, yeah, it's good sort of to see like how God works through us, sort of through those sort of like creativeness that we've got. Yeah, it's definitely great to look at. Oh, more questions coming in. This is great. But it means that I have to look at them to like choose which one to look at next.
That's all right.
I've got my second screen here with all the questions on, so I keep turning away. So, if the world won't ever fully be made better again in our time, why is there a constant want for change in us?
Ooh,
say that again.
interesting. Yeah, say that again.
So, if the world won't ever fully be made better again in our time, why is this a constant? It's a big
constant
one.
Want in us. Yeah. Okay, I think I get it. That's it. That's a good question.
Got there.
Yeah. So I think that that's interesting. Yeah. So we obviously won't see the world being made fully better now. If you look at the Bible, there's a promise of the fact that things will be renewed, evil will be taken away, and we see glimpses of that now. So if you look at the Bible, Jesus talks about us being kind of new creations in him. And so if you become a Christian, you are not completely made better now, because we are still capable of this thing that we call sin. So kind of like a rebellion against God, the kind of like heaviness we have where we kind of do things wrong even if we don't want to. But we are made new, so we are capable of seeing some of the kind of goodness that we'll see later on. But yeah, but why what was the question? Why we don't, the second part?
Let's find it again.
Why do we long for it being better? Is that right?
Yeah, why is there
Yes.
a constant want for change?
Yeah, and I think it really makes sense that there is a constant want for change, because like the world wasn't intended to be the way it is now. When God made the world, he didn't want it to be broken. He didn't want us to die. He didn't want bad things to happen to us and to the earth. And so actually we are made to long for the kind of new creation, what the Bible calls, or this kind of redemption. So actually it's a very real want, and actually I think it speaks of the fact that that's what we are kind of made for, where we belong, basically. So actually, if you are feeling that, I think that's a really good indication that actually we do need, like all of us feel that need, don't we? There's something beyond us. We kind of need like a kind of gap being filled, to be filled. So yeah, I would say that's probably the reason. So keep thinking about it. It's a big question though, that probably I would want to ask the person that asked it what they think, but yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if that is you sitting there, you sent in that question and you'd like to chat more about it, then do get in touch with us as well. We'd love to talk to you about it. I think we've just got one more question we can go through, and then we'll wrap things up. But it is, how do I begin to make a change in the world through my life?
Whoa, that's big. I think it depends what your priorities are, doesn't it? If you're someone who wants to make good in the world, do it by all means. If you want to help the poor, do that. Want to make amazing artwork, do that. But I guess I think, especially as we're thinking about life as a Christian and kind of from a faith point of view, then the fact that if you do believe in this God, or you would want to, then I think you kind of want to live to serve him. Your whole kind of life becomes, and your whole heart becomes attuned not to yourself, not like your selfish self. You don't live for yourself anymore. You live for God. And as we know in the Bible that God is love, you are to love others. So actually, I think the best thing we can do in the world is to love God and love others, and then see what's kind of in front of you in life, what opportunities are given to you, and take them as long as you are kind of fulfilling those first two things. I won't tell you what to do because it depends on your life. So yeah.
Awesome, good stuff. Well, that's great. Some really good questions there. So thanks if you sent one in. I think sort of we're gonna start to wrap it up then. A massive thank you, Alex, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you. And,
thanks for listening to me.
Yeah, it was great. Some really fascinating stuff. So if you're watching this, then we would love you to join us just afterwards on Zoom. We're having a sort of a Zoom cafe. There you go. Coming along the bottom, you can find it in the description on the video on YouTube, or sort of in our sort of Facebook groups as well. Also, just sort of something that the CU does. If you're interested, if sort of anything that Alex has been saying has sort of stood out to you and you'd like to know more, then do get in touch with us. You can find us on our sort of social media. We've got at HallamCU there. You can find us on Instagram or sort of the same on Facebook. Send us a message. We'd love to chat to you. And sort of the CU, we've also got sort of small groups running as well at the moment. We've got the groups called impact groups. That's sort of a group of about sort of 5 or 6 people, and it basically just enables you to really sort of explore and understand sort of who Jesus is and what he could mean for you. So yeah, we'd love you to sort of get involved if that's something you'd like to do. But yeah, that's sort of it from us tonight on stream. Do tune in tomorrow. We've got our next event coming up. We'll be looking at sort of mental health, and we'll be having a sort of personal story from someone tomorrow. That'll be streaming a little bit earlier, so that'll be coming out at 1 o'clock lunchtime. So you can sit down for your lunch, tune into the stream, and enjoy that. And then we'll also be having a separate event in the evening as well. We'll be having a sort of an event on Zoom, and there'll be information about that going up on our social media as well, which you can find out about. But yeah, so from us this evening, again, mostly thanks to Alex. I'll just say a big thank you to Chloe as well. You may have heard Alex mentioning her. She's been running our sort of tech stuff tonight. She's done a great job. So yeah, big thanks to Chloe, and thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in now, or if you're watching it later. Yeah, it's been great to have you join us. That's it from us. Good evening.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.